I see. It's the gravitational fluctuations caused by this ship, plus their signal jamming that makes our hyperspace diverter ineffective. Quinto murmured, I've never seen a ship this size in my life. Is this really a spaceship? Or a space station? The question now is why there is such a huge ship on the periphery of Endor planet. Felicity was a little mad. If this is the case, will Kenneth and the three of them? Communications are completely cut off, Spade said afterward. That's for sure. What level of energy is the other party? What level are we? Even the simplest electromagnetic interference is enough to make us blind and deaf. Quinto accepted his fate and fell on his seat. At this time, only the exit of the hangar in the center of the giant ship was opened, and more than 10 small fighter jets flew out from it, flying straight towards the side. It didn't come directly. I guess they still want to talk to us. Just surrender. I don't think the forces that can own such a large ship should be able to embarrass us little shrimps. Listen, in a while. We have to be neither humble nor arrogant. Don't be frightened by them, and let the other party know that we are not easy to mess with, Quinto said. No problem, look at me. Felicity replied in a low voice. He piloted the spaceship to fly into the entrance of the hangar under the guidance of those fighter jets. The entrance of this hangar alone is extremely huge. Faraci looked at the empty hangar platform and whispered, this hangar can even park the cruisers of the Republic's judicial fleet. What a big deal. The spaceship stopped, and they just walked out of the cabin, but they saw a team of fully armed soldiers standing outside. These soldiers have round waists and thick shoulders and sharp eyes. They are obviously well-trained elites, even more elite than those soldiers of the Galactic Republic with loose military discipline that Quinto and the others often see. Seeing the three of them come down, these soldiers swiped their gun bolts in unison, with a click. A naked threat. Felicity shivered with fright, raised his hands and knelt down with a plop. She looked back. Quinto and Spade were kneeling faster than her, kneeling on the ground with their heads in their hands. Their postures were very standard. Tang Xiao looked at the three people who were kneeling in front of him through the surveillance camera, cold sweat dripping from his forehead. He turned his head and said to Kijin, I guess these three should be in the same group as the three we caught earlier. I think so too. Kijin nodded. Manager, you don't need to look to know that this kind of person is the kind of smuggler. You don't know how much dirty things are on your hands? It's definitely not wrong to catch them and shoot them right away. Bring it here for interrogation. I have something to ask them. Tang Xiao ordered. The three of them were quickly escorted by the Marines to the bridge, and Tang Xiao chatted with them through the translation robot. There wasn't much information, and the smugglers clearly had little interest in the politics of the galaxy. All they cared about was their wallets. The middle-aged man named Jubric Quinto was the head of their small smuggling gang, and the pretty woman next to him, Mars Faraci, was his woman. They mainly work for the huts on the Tatooine planet, and they often travel to the Endor planet, where they get some beast furs and some gems and other things and pull them back to sell. Hut. Tang Xiao touched his chin, feeling a little tricky. The Huts are a very ancient race in the galaxy, resembling giant slugs. Don't look at them disgusting, but as the race of the ancient Hut Empire, they have a strong heritage, and even now they have preserved a powerful fleet. After the Gukt Empire was nominally annexed by the Galactic Republic, the Huts invested their heritage into underground causes. To put it bluntly, that is, everyone in Hut is a gangster, and he is still very rich. Tang Xiao waved his hand and asked the soldiers to put Quinto and the others to prison, continued to analyze the language, and then wrote the words Hut on the interface where he planned the timeline and sphere of influence. At this time, the main brain suddenly came to the news. Manager, we have met the awakening conditions of a legendary character, and can directly awaken him. Legendary figure. Is the condition satisfied so easily? Tang Xiao was stunned when he heard the news. He quickly called up the character page, and sure enough, among the legendary characters, a person's name has been lit up, indicating that he is willing to be awakened and loyal to Tang Xiao. Name, Trent, explorer, good at interpersonal communication, smuggling, spaceship driving and modification. Tang Xiao read out this person's information. Awakening conditions, a grand stage and a ship. Excellent ship. Speaking of this condition, it can be very difficult, or it can be said to be very simple, with great flexibility. It shows that this person doesn't mind when he is awakened at all he wants is adventure. Although there is no very detailed introduction, Tang Xiao already understands who this person is. Munter. The protagonist of Freelancer. Wake him up, and let him come to see me right away. Tang Xiao ordered. He thought about it, and then said, forget it, I'll go to the medical room to see him. He walked directly towards the medical room, only to see a strong man in a leather jacket undergoing a medical examination. He has blonde hair, a handsome face, and a little stubble. At first glance, he is a person who has experienced vicissitudes and is full of stories. When he saw Tang Xiao, he waved his hand and said hello very familiarly. "Hey, manager. Do you still come to see me? I'm so flattered. I'm Munter, and it looks like our colony is in yours. It seems to have developed very smoothly under the leadership. You know, we are in a very complex and dangerous universe. There may be thousands of intelligent races, complex political environment. So, I dare not slack off for a moment, and it is exactly when I need you. I had just captured a spaceship, now it's yours." Tang Xiao stretched out his hand and shook Munter's hand. "Haha, I've seen the information about the spaceship on the core computer. It's a good ship. I can't wait to get into such a stage." Munter laughed heartily. He seems to have such an affinity by nature, and it is easy to get along with others. After chatting with Tang Xiao for a while, he turned the topic to the nurse the side. He was very talkative and humorous, and a few jokes made the nurse girl burst into laughter. However, Tang Xiao didn't marvel at Munter's flirting skills at all. He was extremely excited now. You must know that although Munter is not well known, his ability is definitely very powerful. As a citizen of Britannia in the game, he once thwarted the invasion of the nomads and saved the entire Sirius region from war. He once roamed the universe alone in a spaceship, starting from nothing, participating in wars after wars, and foiling plots again and again. In the end, he even drove the spaceship to create the Dragon Pool, and killed all the way to the main lair of the nomads, and got their core. This is equivalent to him single-handedly picking up an entire interstellar race. During this process, the spaceship driving ability, wisdom, courage and adaptability he showed, as well as the means of dealing with various forces, are completely worthy of the word legend. Now that he has joined, Tang Xiao's next plan can be implemented. The two chatted for a while in the medical cabin. Munter just checked for a physical examination to confirm that there was no problem with his body after cryogenic hibernation. He quickly completed the examination, and after saying goodbye to Tang Xiao, he went to the hangar to check the YT-1000 light spacecraft. That's right, since that spaceship entered the mothership, it changed its surname to Tang, and Tang Xiao also changed hands and gave the spaceship to Munter. After capturing the smugglers of Dubric Quinto, everything was quiet again for more than a week, and the colony was developing steadily. The number of mining stations built around the gas giant has grown to 4, providing the mothership with a large amount of helium-3 fuel for fusion reactors. However, there are only 4 modular mining stations in the mothership. If you want to build new mining stations, you need to build them yourself. In addition, 3 of the 9 satellites surrounding the gas giant planet, also called Endor, are rich in various metallic minerals. Now the engineering department is working overtime to build an interstellar mining farm on one of the asteroids to provide raw materials for construction in space. The same is true for the colony on the ground. Now the colony above Dawnstar has built 1,000 modular 2-story residential buildings. The number of residents has increased to more than 1,700, and the entire colony can accommodate 10,000 residents. Daphne Clement of the administration department is constantly selecting suitable residents to wake up and send them to Dawn to join the construction work. The biggest problem now is that the first is the pressure on jobs brought about by the rapid population growth, and the second is that there are not enough transport ships to and from the mothership and Dawnstar. There are only 5 small transport ships on the mothership, and each transport ship can only carry 100 passengers or 50 tons of cargo at one time, which is far from meeting the demand. Moreover, this kind of transport ship is about 30 meters long and belongs to the level of light frigates, which cannot be built on the built-in production line of the mothership. To build more transport ships, a small space dock must be built, and although construction has already begun, even if the mothership is equipped with modular materials, it will take another week to complete a construction of this scale. To make matters worse, one of the transport ships was broken. These things made Tang Xiao devastated. When the colony first started construction, there were no big problems. Now the scale is getting bigger and bigger, and the problems are getting more and more. In the past few days, he has no time to think about the Star Wars plot and other issues, all of which are constantly going back and forth between Dawnstar and the mothership, making various decisions. However, the benefits of doing this are obvious. He has been instilled with all kinds of knowledge in his mind. After this period of use, a lot of knowledge has been developed, and a lot of work has been done with ease. If it was more than a week ago, when he hadn't crossed yet and was just an ordinary college graduate who would have told him that he could manage such a growing interstellar colony, Tang Xiao must have thought that person was talking about science fiction plot. In short, under the leadership of Tang Xiao, the colony is still developing in an orderly manner. They set up hunting teams so that the Marines can accumulate experience in actual combat, and they can also supplement the colony with meat. Find mines on Dawnstar to mine lime, coal and metal raw materials. Open up farms, fruit fields to grow native plants, and build closed hydroponic farms to grow rice, wheat, corn and other crops brought from the mothership. Build steel mills, cement plants, sewage treatment plants, power stations, water plants, etc. And building roads, airports, laying pipes and wires. And the most difficult step, sewage? Because on this original ecological planet, it is very difficult to plan how to discharge wastewater from factories and how to discharge domestic sewage. The biggest problem is that 95% of the planet Dawn is on the ground, so most of the water bodies are underground, which also brings great difficulties to sewage. Because there is no river to discharge sewage, and no ocean to deal with sewage. If it is discharged into the underground water network, it is estimated that in less than a year, all the creatures on the planet can only drink shit water. So once I went to the colony to inspect, and saw the residents picking up the dung and looking for a place to deal with it, Tang Xiao, who felt offended, returned to the mothership and began to discuss a problem with Daphne Clementi very seriously. Very serious question. He plans to build a giant dung collector on the hill next to the colony to collect all the sewage and manure, and then build a dam to use the manure to generate electricity. It's not unfounded for him to think so, because he has done this in a certain game before. He thought that since even the spaceships in the game can be brought into reality, the poop collector that can be realized in the game should also be possible. However, Clement was directly terrified. She desperately suppressed the urge to grab Tang Xiao to check her brain, and told her manager very seriously that it was impossible in reality because the pressure of the feces was not enough to drive the turbine of the dam, and there are too many impurities in it, it is easy to block. After all, you don't know if some people are constipated, right? In addition, seasonal issues must be considered. What if the poo water in the dung collector freezes in winter? So you still need a heating device, right? It's all cost. In order to strengthen the persuasion, Clement also arrested Guanyin, an energy expert who was eating, to explain that Guanyin was innocent, although she immediately vomited all the lunch she had just eaten after hearing this topic. But she still worked very hard to help Clement convince Tang Xiao. Seeing that this road would not work, Tang Xiao asked them how many water purification plants would be needed to filter the feces into drinking water. Clement and the others were stunned by Tang Xiao's brain hole. They brought Chu Xuan and Feng Yangwang together, and together with several experts to persuade them painstakingly, Tang Xiao abandoned the idea of dung water power generation and recycling. He didn't let himself drift further away on the road to being shot. This interesting topic still had to come to a conclusion, so they continued to discuss for a long time, and finally came to the conclusion that the giant shit collector still needs to be built, but it can't be built on the mountain, otherwise it will be fun once the embankment bursts. Yes, it is directly flooding the city with dung water. The purpose of the construction is not to generate electricity, but to facilitate the delivery of this poop to outer space after a large interstellar transport ship, such as the two stars in the middle of the Endor galaxy. Then Tang Xiao, who had a big brain hole, raised another topic, that is, when this plan is put into practice, wouldn't the Endor galaxy where Dawn Planet be located become a system revolving around two scum-smelling stars? Of course, this is another story. They finally decided to set up the Ministry of Public Health to deal with this matter. When he made this decision, Tang Xiao had no idea that he had created the most terrifying department in the history of the galaxy. However, Tang Xiao quickly disengaged from this tasteful topic. At this moment, he was happily stirring a bowl of mushy chocolate with a spoon, eating a spoonful from time to time, while talking to an elite who had just woken up. Sociologists discuss a very important topic. There were no snacks on the mothership, so Tang Xiao could only use this semi-finished product to satisfy his cravings. Administrators, the thing we have to think about now is the cohesion of the colony. We are small at the moment, and it is good that everyone is around you. But if you continue to develop, it will not be enough. You take a look at my proposal. The sociologist named Norris Berry said to Tang Xiao earnestly. At this time, Guanyin, who was carrying a lunchbox, passed by, saw Tang Xiao and said casually, you are here, manager. By the way, the analysis of the infrared laser weapon is very smooth, and it should be possible. Early. We'll have our first weapons test this afternoon. Are you going? No problem, I'll be there in the afternoon. Tang Xiao replied. He completed the preliminary analysis of the infrared laser weapon in more than a week. He felt that he should praise her a few words, but he suddenly got stuck and didn't know what to say. What? So I picked up the mushy chocolate in my hand and said to Guanyin, do you want to eat it? Seeing the sticky bowl and being stirred into a spiral-like brown object by Tang Xiao, Guanyin's face turned dark and quickly refused. No, I have no appetite. What a pity, this is delicious. Tang Xiao shook his head regretfully, stirred it in the bowl again, and then scooped out a big spoon sticky and put it in his mouth to eat. Guanyin's complexion turned from black to green, and she also didn't want the lunch box in her hand. She covered her mouth and turned around and ran away. Continuing, managers. We need cohesion, says sociologist Norris Berry. You mean we need a title, right? I'm really considering this. Tang Xiao nodded. Not just the title, but also the history. History. What history? Our history, your history, everyone's history. And, it must be a great history. Only in this way will everyone stand between heaven and earth with their chests upright. Norris replied, and the history of the world determines the current values, which is also a very important way of guiding. In terms of values, isn't it good to build up step by step now? Tang Xiao asked. Norris shook his head and said, it's far from enough because you can't control what happens now, the problems you face. But history is controllable. Tang Xiao immediately understood, you mean let me make up a piece of history? This is very necessary, manager. Norris approached Tang Xiao and said in a low voice, no one wants to become a person without a background, everyone attaches great importance to their past memories, that is the most precious thing. So, now that we have no past, let's create one. Tang Xiao nodded and fell on the back to meditate. After a while, he opened his eyes and said to Norris, I have a preliminary plan that I can discuss. Let me wake up some people to help you. He chose 5 writers and 5 sociologists on the wake-up page, but they were all ordinary people, but for now, it was enough. Then Norris Barr headed up the establishment of the Ministry of Social and Cultural Affairs, and handed over the plan to them to carry out the historical adjustment, Bian, management, Zhao. In the afternoon, Tang Xiao went to visit the test of the infrared laser weapon of Guanyan's department. The test was very successful. The laser weapon successfully destroyed the target drone at a distance of 20 kilometers. This laser weapon is far more powerful than the primary electromagnetic cannons currently used on blade fighters and aero reconnaissance aircraft, and the energy supply is directly connected to the engine's energy supply, eliminating the need for additional ammunition bays to store ammunition. Once this kind of weapon is equipped, no matter how shit the blade fighter is, it will more or less have the ability to struggle. Next, Dr. Guanyan also needs to lead her team to upgrade the built-in production line of the mothership in order to mass produce and equip infrared laser weapons. This will probably take another week or so. Then Tang Xiao went to a temporary class to learn Galaxy Standard Language. The teacher is naturally Dubrak Quento and his group, including Munter and some teachers from the newly established education department are listening to the class here. After crossing into the Star Wars universe, language learning was put on the agenda by Tang Xiao. In the future, every citizen's compulsory course is Galaxy Standard Language, which is mandatory. Galaxy Standard Language is not difficult to understand. It has many similarities with the English that Tang Xiao learned in his previous life. It is an alphabetic language and the pronunciation is not complicated. In addition, after Tang Xiao awakened the Force, he didn't know if it was due to the Force, but his brain became a lot brighter. He used to be average in English, but now he is progressing very quickly in learning Galaxy Standard. A good brain is good. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to come up with such brilliant ideas as manure water power generation and manure power dams, right? The next day, Norris Berry, who had stayed up all night, brought all the members of the Ministry of Social Affairs and Culture to look for Tang Xiao with dark circles under his eyes, and came up with a plan. The plan of the fourth civilization. They felt that the proposal that Tang Xiao proposed to them was feasible, so they developed on this basis and expanded to a complete history. In this history, in a certain star system called the Solar System in the fourth cantilever of a certain Milky Way, on a planet called Earth, a splendid and brilliant civilization, the Earth civilization, was born. Earth civilization is extremely powerful, once occupying at least a quarter of the territory of the Milky Way where they are located. However, the good times didn't last long. A creature called the Void Demon suddenly appeared and slaughtered, reproduced, and expanded everywhere, and the entire galaxy was wiped out. Earth civilization stood up first, formed an alliance with other civilizations in the galaxy, and launched a century-long war with the Void Demon. Finally, under the heavy cost of paying huge losses, reducing the population by 70%, and destroying a large number of industrial planets, the last nest of the Void Demon was finally destroyed, and the galaxy returned to peace. Earth civilization began to lead the remnants of the galaxy to rebuild their homes. The invasion of the Void Demon is called the First Calamity, and this era is also called the First Era. Later, in the process of rebuilding their homes, in order to make up for a large number of lost populations, the Earth civilization began to use robots and artificial intelligence to help itself. With the continuous development of artificial intelligence, these robots even have emotional and creative abilities, and the contradiction between organic and inorganic species has begun to become prominent. But the disaster came from this. A mysterious signal from the void opened the door of the second natural disaster. This signal is from an ancient artificial intelligence called Protocol Supremacy, which wants to destroy civilizations throughout the galaxy. Under the influence of the rectification agreement, robots and synths defected one after another, and a war spread across the entire galaxy started again, and the Earth civilization once again came to the forefront of the war. The war process was once despairing. Later, the Earth civilization found the hyperspace core left by the ancient civilization, and through the analysis of the hyperspace core, the technology of hyperspace transition was researched. You can jump directly without relying on the hyperspace channel. With this super technology, the Earth civilization moved the last fleet directly around the mechanical planet where the Soothing Agreement was located, and completely destroyed this planet, finally ending the war. The invasion of the Reconciliation Protocol is called the Second Calamity, and this era is also known as the Second Era. However, the good times did not last long because of the unreasonable use of the hyperspace core. During the hyperspace transition, a high-dimensional creature called Savanish traveled through the cracks in time and space and descended into this galaxy. The ravaged galaxy, led by the Earth civilization, carried out its final resistance, but it failed in the end. All civilizations were destroyed, the Earth was also blown to pieces, and the last fleet of the galaxy civilization was wiped out. In the end, the Earth civilization built a mothership with the hyperspace core, and sent the last spark of civilization, the technology bank, the talent bank and the embryo bank to the mothership. And then conducted a maximum the distance and the target jump randomly, and then come here. The invasion of high-dimensional creatures is called the Third Natural Disaster, and that era is also called the Third Era. After reading this, it almost seemed like the history of a grand science fiction novel. Tang Xiao couldn't help but stunned, this history was so well made up. The logic is rigorous, the story is vivid, and there are also heroic deeds of a large number of characters, such as the commander who led the last fleet of the galaxy, the Protoss Archbishop Artnus, for example, when the Zerg besieged Reach, the heroic Master Chief who delayed the advance of the Zerg army, and Commander Shepard, who perished with the Supremacy Protocol fleet in order to defend the Earth. And most importantly, Tang Xiao's family is the leader who leads the Earth civilization to resist natural disasters. Compared with this magnificent historical text, what that guy named Master Jing wrote is nothing short of scum. And this can also explain that there are various technologies belonging to different civilizations and styles in the Mothership Technology Library, because these technologies originally belonged to different civilizations in the galaxy, and they gave the last hope to the Earth civilization. Of course, this cannot be publicly written into the history book, otherwise, there will be an endless stream of people coveting this technology library. No, this historical fabrication is very well restored. You still need to further improve the details, such as synthesizing some historical materials. This work will be handed over to you. Tang Xiao continued to look at the materials, his face the smile gradually became a little strange, and then he suddenly looked up at Norris Berry, the inexplicable smile made him a little hairy. Manager, is there something wrong with this information? Of course there is a problem, and it's a big problem. Tang Xiao said slowly. Manager. I can revise it, I'll revise it right away. Norris Berry said quickly with some fear. However, at this time, he saw that a team of Marines brought all the other personnel of the Ministry of Social Affairs and Culture here. The sight of the heavily armed Marines made Berry even more frightened. No, you've done a great job. I was wondering if you need to wake up a master sociologist to help you with this task, but you did. This made me understand again that the so-called class the division is only the achievement of that person when he boarded the ship, and ordinary people can reach the level of masters. Tang Xiao said lightly, the smile on his face was unpredictable. Barry couldn't say a word out of fear. In fact, he didn't know how to respond to Tang Xiao's praise. But Tang Xiao changed the conversation. You will be expelled from the Ministry of Social Affairs and Culture, and I will reawaken suitable people to serve as department leaders and members. And you will disappear from the list, and no one will know about you exist. Tang Xiao said. Barry knelt down with a thud. Manager, we didn't make any mistakes. Of course you did not make mistakes. On the contrary, you created a perfect history, and you, too, have to shoulder the burden of this history. You will become history guardians, creating and maintaining our history, and in return, you will everything, enjoy all the material and spiritual pleasures. Tang Xiao said, glancing at the stunned crowd. Then he continued, however, you cannot have contact with anyone else for life, and anyone who has contact with you will be imprisoned forever or even killed. I will build a secret residence for you, which will be the best way to do it. As luxurious as you can, and the rest of your life will be spent there. Norris Berry sighed and said, I understand, we will become your biggest secret, the ones who carry this history. That's right, this is the weight of history. Tang Xiao got up and gave Barry a hug, then he also hugged the other 10 people from the Ministry of Social Affairs and Culture, and finally stood in front of them and bowed to them, please. It's my honor, manager. Barry and 10 other people bowed and said solemnly, we have the honor to witness the birth of the fourth civilization, which is the greatest honor. Watching the 11 guardians of history being escorted away by Marine Corps soldiers, Tang Xiao took a deep breath and his eyes became sharp. The fourth civilization is the mark, or belief, he has determined for himself and the people of this mothership. Barry is right, the history of a nation determines its values and way of thinking, and in the Star Wars universe that is about to be covered by war, such values must not be peaceful. Thus, there is the fourth civilization. He wants to deeply implant a sense of crisis that cuts through the bone marrow into everyone. In the history they made up, after the Earth civilization experienced 3 natural disasters, the Void Demon, the Purification Agreement and the High-Dimensional Invasion, the remnants came here with the Mothership. They want to rebuild civilization and restore glory. Not only that, the tragic experience of the 3 invasions of natural disasters that eventually led to the destruction of civilization filled people's hearts with pain and longing. They hope to survive, hope to develop more brilliantly than before, and hope not to repeat the same mistakes and be invaded by natural disasters for the 4th time. The way to not be destroyed by natural disasters. It is to become a natural disaster. Yes, now they will call themselves the 4th natural disaster, and they are also the 4th civilization that has survived after life and death. Survival and development is the only way, conquest and hegemony are the goals, nothing can stop them. But Tang Xiao has the ability to turn this story into history, and let this story exert its real power to influence the thoughts and values of everyone under his rule. This is the power of power. He also has various technologies, spaceships, and perhaps heroes from different civilizations in his hands, which is also the best proof of this false history. He wants to weave a grand and tragic dream for everyone, and this dream will lead everyone here to another war, the War of Star Wars. Clone Wars. From today, they are the 4th civilization from the Earth. Main Brain, enter this document into the database and exist as the history of all of us. Provide sleep cues to all hibernating inhabitants, leading them to identify with this history. Remember, fragment the content of this history so that everyone I can only think of some small fragments. Tang Xiao said. Okay. Execute it immediately. The main brain replied. Then. Let's set up the Ministry of Social and Cultural Affairs again. Tang Xiao found an elite educator and an elite sociologist in the hibernation residence list, and then equipped a few teachers to wake them all up, and then ready to start compiling history textbooks. This is what this department should do. After a while, Daphne Clement suddenly came to look for him. Dubert Quinto wants to talk to you, manager. Tang Xiao stood up and said, bring him here. It's almost the end of the day. I want to chat with him too. After a while, Dubert Quinto and Mars Veracey walked in. They are now wearing the clothes provided here. They are clean and tidy, and they usually eat, drink, and look much better. They are completely different from the explorers who were full of vicissitudes before. The 2 came to Tang Xiao and hesitated for a while, until Tang Xiao motioned them to sit down, and they sat down opposite Tang Xiao cautiously. Quinto said carefully, dear manager, I don't know your origins, and I won't investigate. But what I want to say is that this time we came to the Endor system because we have a mission. Now that the time is almost up, can you release us and let us go back? In the past few days of life, Quinto and others were full of fear of Tang Xiao. Because the tens of thousands of meters in size of the supergiant ship in front of them cannot be owned by ordinary forces, and they also have a well-trained army at a glance, as well as professional talents in all aspects. No matter from which point of view, they are not ordinary forces, but have great backgrounds. What mission do you have? Tang Xiao asked. You know, we're doing errands for the Hutts on Tatooine, helping them run some smuggling and stuff like that. The goods we're on this trip are from Endor. Oh no, it's on the planet Dawn. The fur, gems, and some Ewok jerky. Quinto naturally knew that Tang Xiao had renamed Endor planet to Dawn planet these days. Jerky from the Ewoks. Tang Xiao frowned. These people are going to catch some Ewoks, kill them and make them into jerky. He knew that this kind of food was popular in some places, but what he couldn't accept was that the Ewoks were already an intelligent race. Although backward, they can think and have their own civilization. One thing Tang Xiao knows is that although the Ewoks are only primitive people of the Neolithic age, their brains and bodies have evolved almost enough. This is a very intelligent race, with a high degree of acceptance of foreign things, and despite their small size, their strength is not small at all, and they are very flexible. In Tang Xiao's view, the Ewoks are the perfect scouts, jungle warriors and mechanical engineers. So now under Tang Xiao's instructions, the residents of the 4th civilization colony are showing goodwill to the Ewoks. They would bring some food to the Ewoks and help them build some simple wooden houses. And the parsing work of Ewok is also in progress, but their language is still relatively primitive, and the progress of parsing is slow. Therefore, with this relationship, Tang Xiao would absolutely not tolerate anyone coming to hunt and kill the Ewoks to make jerky. However, this kind of thing is still relatively common in the Star Wars universe, and many intelligent races are actually on other people's recipes. Maybe this is the estrangement between different races, just like people on Earth eat beef. If one day cows show wisdom, can you guarantee that everyone will not eat them? Everyone is human, so it's good not to eat each other's kind. I'm a human, he's a cow, whether he has wisdom or not, can I still eat it? It is estimated that the vast majority of people think this way. And this is what Jabba the Hutt asked for. You know, I wouldn't dare to mess with him. Seeing Tang Xiao hesitated, Quinto quickly added. Jabba. Tang Xiao's expression changed slightly and he pondered. If Jabba is involved in this matter, then the problem is a little more serious. Jabba is one of the largest Hutt crime syndicate lords and a member of the Diziligic Agidic. He is entrenched on the planet Tatooine and runs his huge criminal empire. It's really not a good idea to provoke such people. Tang Xiao stared at Quinto for a long time. Quinto was a native of the Star Wars universe who was finally delivered to his door. And it happens to be a smuggler who hangs around everywhere, and he also needs such people to be his guides and guide them to further contact this universe. Thinking of this, he nodded and said, you can send this batch to Tatooine, but there is a condition. From today, you are an employee of our fourth group, including your spaceship, which is now the fourth group. Property. We'll have someone to go to Tatooine with you then. No. The cheap hunter is my lifeblood. You can't take it. Quinto exclaimed. You bastard. Mars Faraci shouted angrily, rushing up to hit Tang Xiao. Who knew that Tang Xiao raised his hand and pushed her into the air, and an invisible force directly pushed her out. Faraci fell to the ground with a thud. She got up again and looked at Tang Xiao with fearful eyes. Are you a Jedi Knight? Tang Xiao was non-committal. He stretched out and said, I'll give you two options. First, be killed by me and throw them into space like garbage. Second, work for me. If your work and if I am satisfied, you will get a better ship. Do I still have a choice? Quinto said with a wry smile as he helped Felicia up. The results of working for me have actually been shown to you in part. Think about the comfort of life these days, which you would never expect anywhere else in the galaxy. Well, you'll leave the rest of your comrades to you. Convinced. Tang Xiao stood up and prepared to leave. What about our pay? Quinto said with courage. Reward your sister, I don't even have a penny myself, okay? Tang Xiao scolded inwardly, but he gave an inscrutable sneer, opened his hands and looked around. Do you think there are any conditions that our fourth group cannot satisfy? Quinto and Faraci glanced at the spacious and bright office and bowed their heads obediently. Get ready, I will go to Tatooine with you and Faraci, you need to rest here for a while. Tang Xiao dropped these words, turned and left. As soon as he heard this, Quinto immediately understood that Faraci was a hostage. He raised his head and wanted to say something, but was stopped by Faraci with his eyes. 2 days later, with Tang Xiao's approval, the Fourth Civilization has officially become the official name of their group, and they are also planning to set up a company to facilitate operations, and the name is called the Fourth Group. The colony under construction was named Dawn City by Tang Xiao, and it will be the capital of the Fourth Civilization in the future. After that, he introduced a rule that all residents who form a family must adopt a child and act as his guardian. These children are the 5 billion frozen embryos stored on the mothership. Their genes have been adjusted, so they will grow up in about 10 years, which is equivalent to a higher-end artificial human than cloned human beings. Let the family adopt, mainly to let them feel the warmth and care of the family, so that they will not become a cold storage tool when they grow up. But in order to keep up with their growth rate, these people are indoctrinated every night in their sleep state. This policy can naturally utilize these frozen embryos so that they can integrate into society when they grow up. In addition, all the materials are now rationed, so there is no question of whether they can afford it. In addition, Tang Xiao also made a secret plan. He asked the engineering department to build a secret base in a remote place on the Dawn planet under suitable conditions. This base will be managed purely militarily, and frozen embryos will be cultivated in batches, and these embryos will only be instilled in the process of growing up with the techniques of war and killing. The first batch of 100 fighters began to grow here, and as the base continues to expand, the number of fighters will increase. This is the trump card that Tang Xiao prepared for the war that is about to break out in the future. This unit has no name, but only one designation, the Fourth Army. Everyone has a logo on their uniforms, 4th. These 100 warriors are a seed, because the development of the Fourth Civilization cannot support more warriors, nor can it provide more and larger training facilities. But Tang Xiao believes that one day, 4th will become a powerful force that makes the galaxy tremble. After arranging the work in his hand and ensuring that Clement, who is in charge of administration, and Kijin, who is in charge of military affairs, and Gulaham, the village chief of Dawn City, can continue to arrange the next colonization plan, Tang Xiao went directly to go to the mothership hangar to find Munter. At this time, Munter was still looking after the YT-1000 spaceship in the hangar, which was already his property, and when he saw Tang Xiao approaching, he jumped off the ladder. "Boss, I think I have almost finished the spaceship. I've figured it out, and I've almost learned the standard language of the galaxy. I'm planning to say goodbye to you and explore this universe. If you have anything you need me to do, just bring it up. Bring Quinto and the others with you, and then go to Tatooine. The situation there is more complicated, and it is suitable for fishing in troubled waters, but we are not familiar with each other, and someone must lead the way. Quinto will be your guide, and he happens to have a batch of goods," Tang Xiao said. "No problem, boss," Munter said with a thumbs up. "Is there anything else? Besides, I just have a request," Tang Xiao said suddenly. "I will go with you this time. I have something to do with Tatooine." Munter's expression changed, and he quickly stopped. "This is not good, manager. You are the leader who leads our thousands of people. How can you go outside? We don't know the situation of this universe yet. If we encounter any danger, then our entire colony will be headless. I have a reason to go. And taking a step back, I don't want to be a person who can only point fingers in the office. I have to go out, experience, and then I am qualified to lead everyone to go further. Further," Tang Xiao said. Munter is also a free and easy person. He smiled and said, "Well, since you have decided, I will take you for a visit. But let's talk about it first, only this time." "No problem." However, Tang Xiao's decision to go to outer space with Munter was unanimously opposed. Whether it was Daphne Clement of the Administration Department or Kijin of the Staff Department, they all expressed firm opposition to this. Even the main brain thinks that it is very dangerous for Tang Xiao to go out to explore. But on this matter, Tang Xiao has already decided, and no one can change it. He is very clear that his biggest reliance in this world is that he knows the plot of Star Wars. And to accurately grasp the plot, it is impossible to sit in the office. And this time the destination is Tatooine, which is also a very famous planet in Star Wars. Not just because of all the infighting that took place on this planet, but also because of a person who is likely to live on it now. Anakin Skywalker, Chosen One. The outer ring of the Milky Way, the Urkina sector, the Tattoo Galaxy. Like the Endor Galaxy where Dawn Star is located, the Tattoo Galaxy is also a binary star system, with two stars Tattoo I and Tattoo II orbiting each other. And beyond these two stars, there are 7 planets orbiting around them. However, among these 7 planets, only the one closest to the star has a relatively stable geological environment. This planet has a diameter of 10,465 kilometers, a rotation time of 23 standard hours, and a revolution time of 302 standard days. Because it is so close to the star, the planet has almost completely deserted under the scorching of the 2 suns. And this planet is Tatooine. Because this system is located at the intersection of the Trilus trade route and the Coraline route, it is also a very important transportation route in the remote outer ring area. But it happens that this planet is located in the outer ring of the Milky Way and is located in the Hutt space, the site of the Hutts, and the Galactic Republic cannot manage here at all. Because of this, Tatooine has become such a planet where criminals and pirates can be seen everywhere and almost lawless. After 3 hyperspace jumps along the Trilus trade route, a Corallian engineering-built YT-1000 light freighter appeared on the outskirts of Tatooine. Munter sat in the main driver's seat and pressed different buttons very skillfully to stabilize the spacecraft from hyperspace. He turned his head to Dubrak Quinto in the passenger seat and said, "Okay, it's over to you." Quinto looked at the main driver's seat that belonged to him with a sullen look, then sighed resignedly, turned on the communicator in front of him and called, "Port Mos Eisley, this is YT-1000, cheap. Renamed the Lancer," Tang Xiao said while sitting in the back. "I like this name." Munter smiled. "Okay. Mos Eisley Port, this is the YT-1000 Lancer. I need supplies and unloading. Which one has a berth?" "Squeak," Quinto called. There was a noise from the communicator, and then several voices responded, and the coordinates of the 7th and 8th berths were also uploaded to the spacecraft computer. Quinto glanced at Tang Xiao and said, "Tatooine is a completely free planet, without any official government, everything is private. You have to remember this when you get here, because no one will help you in trouble, except yourself." He chose a berth on the computer. "Okay, let's go to Truda's house. He's with Jabba, he's familiar with me, and it's safe." The spaceship entered the atmosphere, and skimmed the boundless yellow sand and Gobi, and lowered its height on the periphery of a seemingly dilapidated city. Most of the houses in this city are like brick kilns with domes. Apart from a few high towers, even houses with more than 3 floors are hard to see, and there are many broken tents. But the people inside were bustling and very prosperous. The spacecraft, which had been renamed the Lancer, landed on a grassy open space, and a Nikto walked out. The scales on his face have become extremely rough, and some lizard-like bone spurs have worn and broken. For a Nikto, this is the expression of age. He tapped the metal door frame with a wrench and said loudly, "Move it. Boys. Fill up the fuel of this spaceship and add some drinking water." Several engineering robots that had been curled up on the ground and pretended to be dead jumped up all of a sudden. The one with the pipe took the pipe, the one with the wrench took the wrench, and they were very skilled and busy around the spaceship. Quinto walked over and patted Nikto's shoulder. "Long time no see, Truda, how are you doing recently? It doesn't matter if I'm doing well or not, but what have you been doing these days, kid?" Truda said, "Jabba's people are looking for you, and you've delayed your work long enough." "Ah." Quinto glanced back at Tang Xiao without a trace, and said with a dry cough, cough. "Something happened to my spaceship. Malfunction. Do you think I'll be back right now?" Truda glanced behind him. Tang Xiao Munter, T-850, and the Rhodian crewman Spade stood behind him. Tang Xiao and the others had already put on their tattered casual clothes. Except for a whiter face, they were no different from those explorers. While the engineering robot was renovating the spacecraft, Quinto and Truda chatted. They were old acquaintances. "Speaking of which, where did Ferraci go? Why didn't he come with you?" Truda asked. "A few people over there look familiar." He pointed to Munter, Tang Xiao and others. "They're my new. Quinto began to think about what to say. He can't say that Ferraci was raised as a hostage on the Dawn planet by Tang Xiao's delicious food, right? "Partner," Munter said later. "Ah yes, partner." Quinto quickly agreed. "Okay, clean your shitty for your own business. I've informed Jabba, and his men should be here soon," Truda said. "Hey old man. How dare you trick me? I just got to Tatooine and I have to drink a glass of water," Quinto complained. Truda said with a sinister smile, "We all do things for Jabba, you should know this." Sure enough, just as they were talking, a few people dressed as bounty hunters came outside, and as soon as they entered the door, they shouted, "Quinto! Come out! Where's what Jabba wants?" Quinto was so frightened that he looked at Tang Xiao with a pleading look, but he didn't get any response, so he had to bite the bullet and said, "Okay, I'll go right away. You guys, unload the goods and load them up. Jabba wants these things." Another Twi'lek mercenary roared at Tang Xiao, shaking a blaster rifle in his hand. This blaster rifle looks like a military item. Compared with the cheap DL-18 blaster pistol in the hands of Quinto and his party, it is much more high-end. No wonder they are so embarrassed. T-850 took a step forward to give this provocative guy some color. But Tang Xiao stopped him and said, "Okay, let's load the goods." Saying that, he was not too tired. He walked into the cargo hold of the spacecraft, carried a large box, and put it on a Bansa 2 suspended cargo boat. Several bounty hunters looked at Tang Xiao and the others with their hands behind their backs. Then one of them threw Quinto a handful of gold coins and walked away. Quinto nodded and said loudly, "Hey. This is only 2,000 uppy. Didn't you say 5,000? Uppy is the currency that circulates on Tatooine. Tatooine is located in the Outer Ring Star region and is the sphere of influence of the Hutts. The credit point of the Galactic Republic has not been recognized. This unofficial currency is the real hard currency." But those bounty hunters didn't stop, and one person turned back and sneered, "It's good to give you the money. Keep it, useless Mufu cow milker, ha ha ha." Quinto's face changed several times, and when the cargo boat was far away, he raised his finger fiercely in that direction, borne by a group of Bansa mothers. Munter was very free and easy. He walked over and hugged Quinto's shoulders and shook it and said, "It's all right, isn't this a lot of money? We'll just do some work at that time. We'll wait until our colony is built. Now, there'll be plenty of work to do, and you won't have to look at Jabba's face anymore." Jabba. Quinto lowered his head when he mentioned the name. "Let's go, find a place to have a drink, I'll treat you," Munter said. "In the end, it's not my money, I'll take it." Quinto shook his head with a wry smile. They entered the city of Mos Eisley all the way. This city has no plans at all, no roads are marked, and there are only scattered houses and shanties, just like an oversized slum. There are all kinds of different alien races on the road, and all of them wear cloaks to protect them from the scorching sun. Some people were hawking strange goods, others were asking if they had jobs, or they were mercenaries leaning against the wall with weapons and waiting for business to come. Generally, those mercenaries try their best to make a fierce expression and try to make themselves appear more powerful. At this time, a robot with a cylindrical shape like a bamboo pole walked down the street carrying a few heads of corn people. Pedestrians on the road retreated one after another. The mercenaries with vicious appearances ran the fastest. Some passersby were still whispering, "Look, those Quarren from the Iron Fish Gang. They hijacked Jabba's cargo ship a few days ago." Quinto also pulled away Tang Xiao, who was watching curiously, to make way. He whispered, "This is IG-41, one of Jabba's bounty hunters. Stay away from it, and it'll shoot whatever it thinks it does to stop the mission." Tang Xiao didn't speak. He glanced at the robot, turned his head, and followed Quinto to a bar in Mos Eisley. There are a lot of fish and dragons here, all kinds of robots and aliens are mixed together, and they buy some low-quality alcoholic beverages with a little income from their hard work and then vent their excess energy. The Quarren who looked like squid, the Gummer who looked like a big wild boar, were similar to humans, but with 2 tentacles on their heads, Twi'leks of different skin colors. This place was like a rare zoo. Munter was also very new to this place. As soon as he entered the bar, he asked Quinto to get some change and wandered around. He soon hooked up with a Twi'lek woman and went for a drink. Tang Xiao went straight to the large oval bar in the middle of the bar, called the bartender, ordered a glass of wine and drank it one by one, and at the same time threw out a uppy coin and said in a low voice, "I want to inquire about the sky. News from the Walker family." The bartender put away the coins calmly, wiped the dishes and said in a voice that only 2 people could hear, "They live in the port of Mos Esper, and they are slaves of a Toydarian garbage dealer, Water. This is he won the gamble from Gadara the Hutt, and it's been rumored for a long time." Tang Xiao took out another coin and pushed it over. "I want to find them, do you have any suggestions?" The bartender put away the coins again, put the plates neatly one by one, and said at the same time, "The port of Mos Esper is the territory of Gadara the Hutt, you know, Jabba and Gadara are the 2 Hutts. Human relationships. You're doing things for Jabba, and you know what's going to happen. This place really is a mixed bag, and no one can believe it," Tang Xiao thought. As soon as he came to this planet, he was taken away by Jabba's people, and the people here knew the news so quickly. Tang Xiao weighed the last uppy coin in his hand. He was about to say something, but suddenly he felt a force pushing him aside. He frowned and was about to get angry. When he turned around, he saw only the drunk man who was obviously drunk was lying on the bar next to him, snorting the pungent smell of alcohol and said, "Hey. What about you, little Fanpy? How about you, do you want to cooperate with me to get some money?" When he heard about the money, Tang Xiao made a gesture to stop the T-850 who was about to punch, and asked, "Tell me, what can you do?" "Ha ha ha ha. Look at your tender skin, you must have money at home, right? Hiccup. I kidnapped you, and then you ask your family for money to redeem. How about it? Ha 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 hiccup." The drunk man laughed as he spoke, and a few people at the other table next to him, who should have been with him, also laughed in agreement. Boom. The wall of the bar was slammed open, and a man with a bruised face was thrown out. Then the burly figure of T-850 appeared in the gap, and he grabbed the drunkards one by one with one hand, and then slammed into the ground. Bang. Several people were smashed to pieces, lying on the ground and vomiting out all the food they had just eaten. A few seconds later, another drunk was kicked out of the bar and fell to the ground. Tang Xiao walked out with Munter with a wine bottle in one hand. The fight just now didn't last long. T-850 beat the drunken men so much that they didn't even know their mother. Munter and Tang Xiao is not easy to mess with. As a legendary explorer, Munter is a trivial matter to beat up a few hooligans. Although Tang Xiao couldn't use the power of the Force in public, it was no problem to swipe a wine bottle to make up for the knife. And in the past few days, he happened to be a little depressed, and all the grievances in his heart were just vented. Go to Nima. Looking for faults, right? Looking for a fight, right? Tang Xiao angrily broke out a sentence of the Earth's national curse, regardless of whether those people understood it or not. His current state is not quite right, the anger in his heart is somewhat uncontrollable, his eyes are slightly red, and he just wants to tear all these people to shreds. You blob. Vance's feces. The drunk man was still stubborn, and with a pop, Tang Xiao slammed another wine bottle blooming on the drunk man's face. These few hits made him feel happy all over, and the inexplicable negative emotions in his chest all burst out at once. His eyes were a little red, and he shouted hysterically, "Get out!" His voice is like a demon roaring, although the volume is not loud, it makes people feel the shock from the soul. Then, without turning his head, he raised his hand and slapped the other drunk who wanted to attack him behind him. No one around who watched the fun and didn't take it seriously, no one cared why he could slap people several meters away, and no one noticed the thin electric light on his palm. They were all beaten by the fierce T-850 and Tang Xiao stopped. Go back to the spaceship, let's go to Mos Esper port. Tang Xiao suddenly felt extremely tired, he put a foot on the drunk man's crotch again and panted. Looking around, the onlookers turned their eyes away, not daring to look at Tang Xiao. In this lawless place, only strength is the best pass. It's from the Needle Rat Gang, a group of local gangsters who sometimes help Jabba. Let's go, they must have accomplices, maybe they will send someone to go. The munter kicked the person on the ground feet while searching for valuables from these people with ease. You were quick to inquire. Tang Xiao smiled. They walked in the direction of Truda's spaceship berth, and the pedestrians on the road saw that they gave way and did not dare to approach. However, when they passed a shack, they suddenly heard a gloomy voice in the shadow. I have a business, 10,000 uppy, will you take it? Tang Xiao turned around only to see a green-skinned fallen woman leaning against the wall with a sniper rifle on her back. He frowned, turned his head and wanted to leave, but Quinto pulled him and whispered, Boss, Jabba only gave 2,000 uppy on the previous trip, and it's a big loss. If we don't take over any more work, we will really can't even pay for fuel. Murata smiled lightly, walked over and said, if you want to entrust us with work, it shouldn't be the occasion, right? You are very powerful, and you also have a good spaceship. So, I think you should be able to do this, said the fallen woman. Munter said bluntly, so, how much did you get for this job? This isn't something you should worry about. I know Jabak deducted your payment, and you need this money now. How about it, take it, said the fallen coldly. 20,000 uppy, and you must tell me all the news about this trip. Otherwise, you can change someone. Munter has dealt with such people a lot, so he naturally knows what to say. When it was Tang Xiao, his first reaction was definitely to stay away from these people. Deal. Come with me. The fallen woman beckoned, then lifted a lid inside the shed, and below it was a staircase leading to the ground. Munter thought for a while, and exchanged glances with Tang Xiao, so he followed the Farine woman first. Tang Xiao and Quinto walked behind, while T-850 and Spad stayed in the shack to guard the back path. When she came to the basement, the fallen woman took out a communicator and opened it, and a holographic projection appeared in front of her. The figure in the projection is thin, at least close to 2 meters in height, as if a human being was squeezed into the pipe and then taken out. This is a Mon. His complexion is extremely pale, he is wearing a black cloak, the hood covers the upper part of his face, and he also wears a mechanical breathing mask that wraps the entire chin. This is the person who took the task, right? The Moon people glanced at Munter and Tang Xiao. That's right, they are one of the most reliable people who can be found on Tatooine. The fallen woman replied. Very good. The Mon nodded, I'm Hego Damask II, your employer. Your job is simple, go to planet Makayato and pick up a fellow named Seamed. And then send him to planet Lone Hego Damask II. As soon as he heard the name, Tang Xiao's eyes suddenly widened. He quickly lowered his head to hide himself emotions and avoid being seen by others. Munter didn't think so much, just nodded and asked, that's all. I promise you, that's all. Of course, you have to know that since I asked you to pick him up, it means that there are other people who are interested in him. If you can do it, then you will be rewarded handsomely, and the friendship of the Musk Holding Group. Hego Damask said lightly. Then who is the opponent we need to face? Munter asked again. This is an unofficial commission, so your opponents are everyone. Munter thought for a while, nodded slightly to Tang Xiao, and then replied, okay, we'll take over this job. I'll send you Seam's information. He said, his eyes fell on Tang Xiao, this companion of yours seems a little scared. Tang Xiao's heart jumped fiercely, but he still tried his best to appear relaxed. Munter said, he is our new crew member and he has never seen the world. Quinto and I will be here this time, so there will be absolutely no problem. Very well, it's best not to let such newcomers affect your mission. This is very important. You must arrive at your destination within 89 standard hours. He said slowly. That's for sure. Munter replied quickly. After finishing the communication, the Farine woman put a heavy bag in the hands of Munter, and threatened, this is 5,000 uppy, and I will give you the remaining 15,000 after the task is completed. Time is tight, you must leave immediately, don't play tricks. You can't afford to offend this person. Of course I know I can't afford it. Tang Xiao roared in his heart, and a drop of cold sweat fell from his forehead. Aren't you going to Mos Esper Port for something? After the fallen left, Munter asked Tang Xiao. Forget it, since there is a time limit for this mission, let's go as soon as possible. We'll go to Mos Esper later. Tang Xiao shook his head, not to mention this person's request, it seems that I have to make such a trip. Already. Although he really wanted to see that son of heaven, Anakin Skywalker, now, considering that the other party is now a 7- or 8-year-old child, he is not in a hurry to meet him now. When Tang Xiao came out this time, he wanted to see Anakin and chat with him. But more importantly, he wanted to go out by himself, see it with his own eyes, and experience everything in this world. Although he is now the leader of the fourth civilization, no leader can get things done by sitting in the office all day. If he wants to survive in this world and develop the fourth civilization, then he must do more than others. Moreover, only he knows the plot of Star Wars, and it is not convenient for him to tell others too much, so he can only go out and run by himself, so as to grasp the context of the plot. Back on the Lancer, Quinto and Spade do their final checks in the engine room. Truda had their ship refurbished so well that it was full of fuel, water and food. But Tang Xiao was still a little lost, looking out the window in a trance. Munter came over and patted Tang Xiao on the shoulder. "You know that person just now?" "You mean that Mun? He looks like a member of the Interstellar Banking Association. The Damask Holding Group may be a subordinate group. In short, it is absolutely impossible for us to provoke such an existence." Quinto, who was busy at the side, said, "The industry of the Interstellar Banking Association is all over the galaxy, and no one dares to disobey them, otherwise the fleet of their collection agents will immediately come and take everything on your planet. All of it. It can only be worse than this." Tang Xiao sighed. "This name, this dress-up. I can't say I know, but I know some legends about him. He is one of the biggest darkness in the galaxy, but fortunately it's not like that on the surface. We are unlucky. The Milky Way is so big to be able to meet him. It's better to deal with him less in the future." If his memory of the Star Wars plot is correct, the man just now was a Sith Lord. The Sith are the remnants of the Sith Empire that fought an epic war with the Galactic Republic thousands of years ago. Like the Jedi Knights, they are also Force-sensitive who can use the Force. It's just that the Jedi Knights use the power of the bright side of the Force. They restrain their desires, stick to their beliefs, and use the power of the Force to do what they think is right. However, the Sith Lords use the power of the dark side of the Force. They indulge their own desires, act recklessly and take me as their master, and they don't care if they bring pain and disaster to others. Although the Galactic Republic finally won in that war and the Sith Empire was destroyed, the Sith Lords still exist, and their shadows always haunt the dark side of the Galactic Republic. They waited for the opportunity, ready to seize every opportunity to subvert the entire Galactic Republic. And Tang Xiao knew that they finally succeeded, just over 10 years later. So the tone he set for his fourth civilization is war. Fight for your place in the war that will overturn the entire Galactic Republic over the next decade or so. And now, he doesn't want to deal with these deeply hidden Sith Lords. But it happened to come. What else can this say? If it's not fate, it's the mysterious force that is arranging it. The Lancer YT-1000 light cargo ship rose into the air, broke free from Tatooine's atmosphere and flew all the way to outer space. After breaking away from the gravity well, Munter activated the hyperspace engine, the spacecraft entered hyperspace, and in a blink of an eye, it was removed from the universe. Disappeared in space. At the same time, a Z-10 Explorer-class light spacecraft is sailing in the hyperspace channel of the Model Star region outside the Endor galaxy. "Mr. Qui-Gon Jinn, we're about to leave the hyperspace lane." The pilot turned his head and said to the two people standing behind him, who were wearing wide sackcloth cloaks that covered the upper part of their faces. "Did you feel it?" "Obi-Wan Nobi, the incoordination of the Force." One of them said back. "I can feel it, Master." Another man lifted his cloak, revealing a youthful face, with a brown head and a long, thin braid hanging down from his right temple, looking energetic. This it is a hairstyle that many Jedi apprentices will adopt. "There are still some residual fluctuations here, and I feel like we've come to the right place. But no matter what it is, whether this thing is still here or not, we have to be vigilant. The disturbance is so powerful that even Master Yoda can sense it. It must be no small matter," Qui-Gon Jinn said. "I understand, Master. So what should we do?" Obi-Wan asked. "To feel the guidance of the Force, not to interfere with it. The operation of all things in the world has its own laws, and to forcibly reverse it will only make this law more and more chaotic." "So, do you actually disapprove of this expedition?" "I never said that." Qui-Gon Jinn smiled. The scenery outside the porthole suddenly darkened. The spacecraft escaped from hyperspace and returned to the dark space. A pale blue gas giant planet appeared in front of them, and several satellites orbited the gas giant planet in different orbits. There was a beeping sound on the console, the co-pilot pressed a few buttons, and a hologram containing the entire star system appeared on the screen in front of him, with several objects marked with red markers. "Sir, there are man-made facilities here." The co-pilot zoomed in on the screen, only to see that 3 sector-shaped mining stations were in the orbit of the gas giant planet, and more than a dozen transport spaceships were constantly going back and forth to mine resources. Qui-Gon Jinn frowned. "Why are there people mining here in this remote area of the Endor galaxy? There is no stable and safe hyperspace route here, so mining here is not worth the gain. Perhaps the Nemoidians and the Trade Alliance have thought of some way to make money. Those stinky businessmen will never be afraid." Obi-Wan Kenobi pouted and said. Don't let your emotions cloud your judgment, Obi-Wan, it's also your greatest weakness. I understand, Master. So if you can put aside your personal prejudices, that's not the way the Trade Federation does things, and if they really want to mine here, it's definitely not like that, Qui-Gon Jinn said. Let's fly over there. Go and see who's up at the mining station. Wait a minute. There's another huge signal, said the co-pilot suddenly, in the synchronous orbit of Endor, and now it's on the other side of the planet. It's a... Gosh, the radar shows this thing there are more than 40,000 meters in height. Giant space station. Qui-Gon Jinn was stunned when he heard the size, and then became serious. How could such a huge space station exist outside the inner circle of the Milky Way? If this is the case, then the owner of this space station conspiracy surely not small. Let's fly in the direction of the space station, Obi-Wan, and try to contact them? Okay. Obi-Wan Kenobi picked up the communicator, turned on the public channel, and called, Hello, we are travelers passing by here, and encountered gravitational chaos when passing through the model channel. The attack of the flow, the spacecraft was damaged, I hope you can come over to replenish it. Please reply. After a while, a woman's voice came from the communication, Hello traveler, we are the pioneering colony group of the 4th group. I hope you come with good intentions. The 4th group. Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi looked at each other, and both saw deep doubts in each other's eyes. The outer ring of the Milky Way, the Alberio star sector, the Makaito galaxy. The Lancer left hyperspace and appeared in the dark universe in an instant. Almost at the same time, Tang Xiao received a hyperspace communication from the mothership. Although the hyperspace core on the mothership cannot be used for unknown reasons, even if it cannot be used for jumping, it is no problem to support hyperspace communication. Is the power of the infrared laser weapon not enough? Is there a way to increase the power output? Tang Xiao was sitting in the guest seat, talking to Dr. Guanyin, a mechanic. Not for now, because the blade fighter uses a small fission reactor, which can provide very limited energy. If you want to increase the power of the infrared laser turret, you need to install a small nuclear fusion reactor. Dr. Guanyin said, This is also the direction of my next research. That's hard work for you. Before the Wraith completes the analysis, try to improve the combat effectiveness of the blade fighter. Okay, let Kijin come over. Tang Xiao said. Manager, the production plan for 50 blade fighters has been completed recently, and the first round of modification is being carried out in batches to replace the weapon system with an infrared laser turret. Kijin's voice came. What about the effect? The weapon experiment has also ended. The damage capability of the small laser turret that can be installed on the fighter is about 30% higher than that of the primary electromagnetic gun, but the effective range is only 30 kilometers. This is definitely not comparable to the almost infinite range in the space environment. It is a kinetic weapon, but it can save the space for storing ammunition before, reduce the weight of the body, and improve flexibility. And to be honest, with the performance of the blade fighter, the combat distance is generally within 10 kilometers, and the problem of range can be temporarily ignored about it. Tang Xiao nodded, let the pilots do more energy weapon shooting training. In the future, our main weapon research direction will be energy weapons. That's right, as an energy dog in the stars, you must climb the energy technology and go straight to the light spear and the arc. He checked the personnel list again, and found that with the development of the colony, 2 more elite scientists met the conditions for awakening. One is a computer expert and the other is an engine expert. This is exactly what he needs very much. Immediately arranged to wake up and strengthen it into Dr. Feng Yangwang's team to speed up the development of the Wraith. Then Tang Xiao found a chief aerospace engineer among the masters and looked at the conditions he needed. This condition is harsh, including ground wind tunnel laboratories, small space docks, and a complete scientific research and technical team. However, there is no better shortcut to take now. He sent these conditions to Daphne Clement, asking her to do everything possible to meet this demand, and then wake up the chief engineer. While Tang Xiao was working remotely, the mainbrain voice suddenly interjected, Manager, please allow me to interrupt. I just received a public channel message that a spacecraft calling itself a traveler requested to board the ship. I hope you can make a decision as soon as possible. Asked to board the ship. Why are people coming to Endo, a place where birds don't shit? Can you transfer the communication? Tang Xiao immediately became alert. Good manager. Immediately forward hyperspace communications. The communication information includes image data. A holographic projection appeared in front of Tang Xiao, and a middle-aged man in a cloak said politely, Hello, you must be the manager of the space station on planet Endor. My name is Qui-Gon Jinn, traveling. There are some problems with our spacecraft during hyperspace voyage. I hope that we can get repairs and supplies from you. Please help us. But Tang Xiao's attention was not on this obvious excuse. He just kept staring at this man, and suddenly uttered a sentence for no reason. "You are a Jedi Knight, right?" The other party was obviously stunned, but then smiled like, "I don't think I wrote the words Jedi Knight on my face." Tang Xiao said solemnly, "Then, can you tell me the reason why a Jedi Knight suddenly appeared here?" He had already recognized this person. Jedi Master, Qui-Gon Jinn. The appearance of Qui-Gon Jinn is exactly the same as in the movie. Tang Xiao immediately matched the number when he heard his name, but he did not point it out. In the communication, Qui-Gon Jinn was still talking. A space station suddenly appeared in the remote galaxy of Endor, and the Galactic Republic must pay attention to this matter. "Master, it has been confirmed that huge thing is a spaceship, not a space station." Another voice interjected. Qui-Gon Jinn's expression also became very serious. He stared at Tang Xiao and said word by word, "So, this is why I came here." Tang Xiao sighed softly. He didn't expect the matter to go to the Jedi Knights. This spaceship does not have the ability to travel in hyperspace, and this is completely a civilian spaceship, the purpose of which is to use it on the planet Endor colonization. The formalities of this colonial operation on the Republic side are being processed. For normal business practices, we will not interfere much as long as you can prove that it is legal, Qui-Gon Jinn said. "If you don't dislike it, please stop by my mothership for a while, and I'll be back soon," Tang Xiao said. "In that case, I will be very grateful for your hospitality." Qui-Gon Jinn nodded slightly. After finishing the communication, Tang Xiao took a deep breath and shook his head. It seems that after this mission is over, it is still necessary to return to the mothership as soon as possible. It's a pity that his expedition has just begun and is about to end.